Forbes Books presents The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani, highlighting the pioneers that reimagined possibilities and reimagined businesses. Hey there, it's Joe. Gerry and I are back with Madeleyne Vivanco, a global IT executive and CIO with over 20 years of leadership experience delivering business value through the definition and execution of meaningful IT strategies and enterprise capabilities. In part 2, Madeleyne kicks off the conversation discussing how big retail has embraced a more D2C ethos.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. And that's a very important ingredient as we think about omni-channel, as we touch our customers, regardless of where they are, but in a way that we create that experience. And this experience, concept has been around for years already. You look at even coffee shops or whatever, when you create loyalty to our brand, or you want to have people stay loyal to your brand, they have to feel that emotional connection. So that's very intimate. So that means that you have to have the great understanding of your customer and delight them, as Gerry mentioned, regardless of where they are. If you walk into a store, how do I delight this person? And if you were to have a tool where you actually kind of know the person, why not? And the same, even when you are in your website, or you market to the persons through email. So it's the experience that you get that will get you the loyalty and expand on that as well. So, but that's, again, what the tools that we have to really have that understanding of our customer, what's the data that we have to get them into the journey, regardless of where they shop.
When you think of experiences, think Starbucks. You go there many times to just buy your coffee and get out. But sometimes you go there, you sit down, you do your emails, you just enjoy the music, the whatever, the ambience. It's the experience. It's not just the coffee. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm thinking about experiences. This is it.
Yeah, I'll give you another example. I love movies, but since Netflix and all of these tools, you have all these movie theaters offering this VIP experience where they offer all this stuff. That's the add-on, the additional experience that you have when you go to the movie. So survival, right? So experience is a big component. Absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay. When did retail embrace this? You've been doing this for a while. When did retail embrace the idea of an experience? For example, I remember growing up, if you went to a grocery store, it was poorly lit. It looked like it was like you were walking into the middle of a horror movie. And then all of a sudden, grocery store changed. They decided to make it more of an experience for the shopper, to have tastings, to have like a little bar there, have a little coffee shop, have a little pizza shop. Grocery stores embraced that. And you saw those old school supermarkets just die on the vine. And these other ones that embrace the experience, they're the ones that succeeded. When did experience become such a big part of retail, Madeleyne?
Oh, I don't know if I have the answer to that, so I will not pretend I do. But I think it has been, for some years already, and it depends on the retailer, I guess, in terms of their journey. But yeah, you have retailers I know for years already, retailers that offer the experience of, maybe styling the customer when you get there. So it's not only the transaction of buy this, that, and you're lucky if you find an associate to help you with sizes. But also look at this is another piece, that we can, what situation are you gonna? So there's a few things that are coming to bear on that regard. So I think it's becoming more prevalent. I would not be able to tell you in terms of years. However, I think it's important as we go through this journey and different industries that we look across industries. Some of the big ideas come when you think about, an industry gets an idea from another one. You got the example right for groceries and all that stuff, right?
You're very right when we are looking at certain industries. Why? Because you have this experience topic in luxury since forever.
Yes.
In luxury, the experience was always there. Like this is how they were driving the customer interaction. So for them, this was a no-brainer. And then you are asking when did it happen? Like in the past, like 20, 30 years, people started to think about maybe we can democratize a little bit this experience, bring it from luxury into other areas. slowly it kind of started to go into other things. Now you have stores like Whole Foods that appeared in the past 20 years or so, and then it gradually adjusted and shifted. So it's I would say it's much more of a continuum than saying that yes, 10 years ago it started coming up, but it really has been it started in the hospitality business, and it started in the luxury business, where the concept of experience was always there.
Yeah, you think about Apple. When you go to an Apple store, mine is always crowded, but the experience of the Genius Bar and all those things, that's people feel taken care of for the most part, right, over there, versus just going to a store where you are struggling to find out what technology you want to buy. So it is you make it intimate, you make it in a way that the person feels happy and feels engaged and that they are important. So
and we've been talking about digital transformation, and digital transformation is not just what happens on the e-com or the website or on your backroom support, but a lot of that actually kind of works into brick and mortar as well, right, Madeleyne? Because all of a sudden with the pandemic, you saw a lot of companies introduce curbside pickup or order ahead. How big a factor did that play within your brands? Were you doing that pre-pandemic, or is that something that you introduced during the pandemic?
We started in the pandemic. I think scarcity or need, springs, big ideas, and then let's do whatever it takes. So yeah, it was through the pandemic. This order in line, pick up in store, curbside pickup. So how can we make it happen? Because the person cannot get into the mall, so bring it out there to the curb. So it was a big eye opener for us on how many things we could do without pandemic, right? That could have been an experience that would have delighted certain customers. So yeah, it was done. That was a big spark for us.
Yeah. And that's not really a pandemic thing for a lot of companies. I know Best Buy's been doing that for years, where you order ahead and you just pick it up inside. So in Canada, I'm curious, Madeleyne, because I think, Gerry, we spoke to someone who was in, Great Britain or New Zealand, where they said like the curbside never took off. They never really got into it. Do people in Canada enjoy that order ahead curbside experience?
Yes, they do. I mean, we do. We have it, whether if it's groceries and obviously, in any other aspect. I think Canadians do. I don't think that, that will ever be 100% replacement of people really enjoying, physically being to the office, mostly for certain items that are, than others. But yes, there's no hesitation for Canadians. And there's a lot of, conversation, I think, also on retailers in terms of how can we be better? And there's always a connection. Well, Amazon does this, how can we do this in a best in class? Because and how many people buy from Amazon? All of them. So yeah.
And Madeleyne, and we talk about a bunch of times about like how you have 6 different companies, how they were siloed off, and you were able to integrate them together. What culture was needed in each of those to pull off this digital transformation? Because you have 6 different companies, basically, they're going to be 6 different cultures. So how do you integrate the culture fit into digital transformation?
All of the companies, are great companies, to be honest. And there's a desire and a hunger to really make their company successful. So they understand right now that, as we're looking to amplify the value, there's a lot of conversation about that. And, by taking advantage, not necessarily teachable moments, but don't miss the opportunity for any initiative that you're taking on to elevate those conversations where you engage people, regardless of their function or the level, depending on the initiative, across all of the companies. Because there's, as I mentioned, just the example with our Commerce Cloud, and we're seeing that as well with Service Cloud. The conversation and the sharing of ideas was really interesting, and you start creating that culture of greater good or the greater impact. So yes, there's always going to be, and rightfully so, a need or desire for uniqueness, because each of the banners are unique. However, there's also a value out of functionality or best practices even that cut across, that will put all of them at a stronger position. And that means that sometimes they'll have to compromise on certain areas, but they know that but the bigger picture, the bigger value is going to be enabled through those decisions.
And Gerry, we talked about the cloud a bunch. How big a factor is the cloud in digital transformation?
It changes everything. You don't have to put the servers inside of your company infrastructure. You don't have to install anything. Things are done are automatically scalable. You can much easier take 1 million orders as well as you can take just 10. So these are already there, and they are designed like that. So it removes a lot of headaches in the way you are putting it together, and also enables companies to think about their business and not about nuts and bolts and servers and cables and this kind of infrastructure conversation.
Actually, strategically and directionally, we're moving to the cloud. Aside from what Gerry mentioned, which is totally true, it helps you, more efficiently dial up or dial down, and take care of all the other infrastructure components. But also your security posture gets, strengthened when you move to the cloud versus, you're dealing with your on-prem, hardware, and then, the consequent cost of operating it, etc. Right? So at the end of the day, that's where we're heading. We have a couple of other initiatives aside from business enabling initiatives that are more foundational, where we're actually moving to the cloud.
Actually, funny fact, like many years ago, when we still use servers, I know of a business who had a couple of servers in the back office, and one guy one night just picked one up, unplugged it, and went away with it. So that's to your what Madeleyne said about the security impact of the cloud. You cannot do that in the cloud.
That's exactly funny. I'm old enough to remember those thumb drives that you used to put all your files in from like home from work. The cloud put those hard drive businesses, put them out of business because there's no need to carry. Like people today are like, what is a thumb drive? You have to keep something in your bag with files on it and stuff like that. It's amazing. And it's not that long ago, people were using thumb drives to transfer. It's the speed of which this is moving is remarkable, right, Madeleyne?
Absolutely. And you know what? We're talking all about, transformation to drive, our customers or, engagement, etc. But what about the transformation of your own employees? How do you collaborate better? How do you drive efficiencies in that regards? How do you keep sustainability of the knowledge that you have by putting, that knowledge base in places where they can be easily collaborated in and also easily passed along? So, and the tools are there. And that's another area where, the transformation, digital transformation on the employee and engagement side has also a very important part, because without your employees, the company doesn't exist. So you have to find those ways to drive that. I had another initiative, not in Perian, where we actually drove an initiative that was called a digital workplace. And now we see many companies do that, right? How do you create spaces that are engaging for people, but also the digital tools so that regardless of where they are connected, they are efficient, and they can, perform very well. So
bringing day-to-day tools to your work environment, like for example, video calling. Video calling now it's everywhere. It's the norm. It's like you could actually use it also in an enterprise environment, and not just necessarily for having a meeting, because now when you're talking video, everything is about having a meeting. But imagine one of your specialists in, let's say, because we are talking about Canada, let's say Montreal, providing assistance to a customer in Vancouver through a video call. When they are experiencing something, they are trying out something in one of the stores in Vancouver. This could be done. I mean, it's not so crazy of an idea with the existing tools, with what we have around. So yeah, it's these things that are coming into our day-to-day life, and we need to embrace them. We need to drive them. We need to organize them as technologists, and enable the enterprise, enable the brands, enable them to be more performant, to be ahead of the curve and embracing these changes.
And earlier, Gerry, you said the line between work and life is basically been erased. And again, I'm old enough to remember when I could only check my work email when I went into the office. I don't want to age any of you guys if you say yay or nay to that. But
we local.
yeah, but now we are always connected to our work. We're always have that. So I'm curious, Madeleyne, from your perspective, what's the best way for team members to still be engaged, but also disconnect and be able to live that life? Is that something you've had to contemplate?
Yes. I call it work-like effectiveness because yes, and obviously there's a balance. But when I say effectiveness, it's because each person in their own, they're their own people, right? We need to make sure that allow them the flexibility, and that's I'm a big proponent. Allow people the flexibility to be able to work wherever they are and manage. What are the office hours, right? Their office hours based in a way that they still can deliver the results, deliver on their commitments, but also take care of whatever pressing things they have at home. But at the end of the day, I encourage people to really take their own ownership of what that means to them, so they don't feel compelled to look at their email close to midnight. You don't have to, but the tools are there. So that's a lot of a personal decision that we each need to take ownership of. But in terms of connectedness, you bring a big point. I've been in charge of global organizations, etc. And you have to actually think and really intentionally bring initiatives or activities that you can bring your team together, whether if it's fun events or if it's just casual events or once in a while face-to-face, why not? Or different ways so that you can intentionally bring those people together and have people have the sense of they belong to a team regardless of where they are. So you cannot just let that to the wayside, because people can feel isolated very quickly. So you have to actually think about little things on how to keep them engaged.
And Gerry, for you, for someone who has people scattered all over the globe, how do you balance that? Because as you know, time zones are funky. It could be, one of your workers could be working while you're sleeping or vice versa. How do you figure that out in your own brain?
Where you say 9 to 5 on what time zone?
Right, exactly.
Like we live in a different world where you have all the time needs to jump on a call with one of your colleagues from the other side of the world at 11 p.m. I am against this concept of mandating this 9 to 5 space. I'm much more for flexibility in the way you work. Sometimes you need to take the morning off because you need to figure out some stuff out for your personal life, your kids or whatever. I don't have an issue with that. You work different hours. It's if that can function, that can be working, and I think we need to take more ownership of this work-life balance and how we structure it. It cannot and it won't be able in this new world. It's not gonna work 9 to 5, but it's still going to be able to give you enough balance and enough space so that you can have a personal life and a work life. But it's going to be different from that 9 to 5. It's going to be when I'm going on vacation and I cannot check my emails at least once a day, I'm not enjoying my vacation. I need to be able to check my email once a day, and then I know I'm okay, I'm relaxed, I'm fine, whatever. Where is the work life? This total to be completely unplugged for me doesn't work. And I know many other people who are like this, and they just prefer to be able even jump on a meeting if they need to, and they are okay with it because it works for their particular context, for their particular life. Some people like to be completely unplugged, and that's also fine, but it's not like a one size fits everybody and it has to be mandated.
I'm jealous of those people that they went away for a week or so and then they come back and they spend the next 3 days catching up on emails. I'll be like, someone will be away on vacation and on Wednesday, I'm like, hey, what you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm still catching up on emails. You were gone a week. You weren't gone 2 months. You couldn't look at your phone once. Again, I appreciate that and respect that. But again, it comes down to that mindset. And Gerry, when it comes to you and your team, it's really that top-down approach. If your team doesn't see that that's the way you handle it, that you're okay taking the morning off, doing whatever you do, they're not going to do it. I have a funny story. When I started with the new company, they said our big thing is work-life balance. 9 to 5. We don't expect people to work after 5 o'clock, go home at 5 o'clock. So on my second day in the job, I'm doing like an editing project, and it was like 5:05, and I'm like, I'll just let me finish. Go to 5:15, leave my studio. The whole office is dark. They had shut the lights off at 5:15 because it was like they really and to me that proved like I understand this company really does value your work-life balance, whichever way you want to term it, but it's really that importance, Madeleyne, right, from the leadership down to show people that's important.
Absolutely. That's why I call it work-life effectiveness, because as Gerry mentioned, is really to the individual what works for them. And I think because as leaders, we have our own preferences of how we work, how we feel effective. I always make a point to my team, guys, sometimes I use my weekends to catch up. And I enjoy it. I feel productive because it makes me feel good about my week that's going to start. I don't expect you to reply to my emails on the weekend. Please don't. It makes me feel more productive. So but you have to say it out loud, because if they mimic the way you work, maybe that doesn't work for them. So you have to say, it's okay that you choose your preference. This is how it works for me, and you don't have to necessarily, answer emails then.
I mean, it happens that you send out messages at very odd moments in the day and everything. What really surprised me that I have employees that sometimes answer back to me at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I said, "What are you doing? What's happening here? Aren't you supposed to be sleeping? Why are you answering at this hour?"
They're probably at the nightclub, Gerry, having like a Red Bull and vodka and emailing you back.
We have many employees that have small children, and that's also a topic.
That's great.
That explains.
I'm in charge with my kid, and I don't know what to do, so I'm replying my emails or I'm messaging. I'm seeing that a lot.
That's great. Well, Madeleyne, to wrap things up, we talked about the digital transformation a lot during this conversation, and obviously a lot of it was accelerated during the pandemic. But I always like to end these podcasts talking about the future. Outside of another pandemic, God forbid, happening again, what else do you see in terms of digital transformation in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think what I see, different or not even about technology in itself or anything else. What I see, and maybe prompted by the pandemic, is a different mindset from people and organizations in why not? It can be done. Because there were many companies where, oh no, this cannot happen, or it's going to take us ages to get this done, and what have you. Pandemic came up, okay, this is either we do this, or what things do we do? So a big part of the transformation is going to be about the mindset of why not, and then what else, what others are doing. Is being more actively open and aware of what others are doing, not even siloed or constrained within your industry, to really, move along and then stay on top of instead of catching up. So that's basically, I think, what I see more. I think everybody understands the value of technology. Everybody understands that, but I think that those two ingredients are going to be a big players going forward.
I like this way of saying it, the mindset of why not and what else. It's I'm gonna keep this.
Madeleyne, he's gonna steal that. So you know,
that's okay.
In 2 years from now, you can see Gerry at like a conference. He's gonna use like exactly everything you just said. You're like, wait a minute, I said that first.
That's good. Oh, good.
All right. Well, Madeleyne, thank you very much for joining us on this conversation on digital transformation. We appreciate your thoughts and your openness. Have a great time in the conference, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a lovely time here. Thank you so much, both.
This has been The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvany. To participate in the conversation, go to gerardzatvany.com. The Great Digital Transformation is a production of Forbes Books.